So what you're going to hear are the headlines only. And if anyone is interested in a deeper dive in this, just get in touch with me. I do this because it's my responsibility to do it. I'm not here to sell any product or service. I'm just going to give you a case study. It's a true story about what happened to me when I brought Krispy Kreme to Southern California in 1998. How many of you have been in a Krispy Kreme? Okay, so most of you have. I had never heard of Krispy Kreme. I wanted to start a business because I have 5 kids. My kids were maturing and smart enough to figure out they ought not to be lawyers because I sell my time as a lawyer. And they reminded me as they were growing up that I was selling my time to people like you instead of them. And they didn't want to spend their lives away from their kids as much as I did. So I built a shopping center in Riverside at the University Avenue and the 60 freeway, and I was looking for non-ubiquitous tenants. And I said to my son-in-law at the time, look, if you find a concept, he was running real estate for Sony. Some of you may remember that Sony used to operate a theater business, and he was out in New York running real estate for them. And I said, if you come along to a concept anywhere in your travels throughout the United States that might work in our shopping center in Riverside, please let me know. I'd like to buy that and kill 2 birds with 1 stone, create a business I could give my kids, a great estate planning tool, and also fill a vacancy in Riverside. So that's the impetus for my doing this. He calls me one day from South Carolina and he says to me, I think I have the perfect concept for the Riverside University Village at Riverside, and it's this donut concept. I'd never heard of it before. I don't eat a lot of donuts, didn't then. I have since learned how to do that in a modest kind of way. And that's how the business got started. This story is a very compact business cycle from its inception, and I go through how you raise money, how much money should you raise when you undertake an enterprise of this nature. The nature of the enterprise, which we agreed to in writing with Krispy Kreme, was to build 42 Krispy Kremes. That's a 4,000 square foot box and about 30,000 square feet of land in Southern California, zoned for retail with drive-through privileges. And if any of you are involved in the real estate business, you will understand today much better than I did in '98 when I signed this agreement. I personally guaranteed that obligation. That to do that in 7 years is impossible. There isn't that much real estate available. It's highly sought after, very competitive, and in North Carolina, where our counterparty was, Krispy Kreme had different competitive forces at work on their real estate choices than we do in Southern California. But I didn't know enough at the time. What do I know? I'm a lawyer. I had no idea about franchising, real estate attributes of it, and certainly nothing about the donut business. In any case, you're going to hear in about 14 minutes and 46 seconds the story of what we did. The takeoff part of this thing began in La Habra, California in January of 1999. Any of you ever go to the La Habra store when open? So the La Habra store was pro forma at $1.5 million in its first 12 months. We opened January 26th of 99 with a tremendous amount of press and fanfare. And I want to talk briefly about that. But we opened in January of 1999, and by the end of the year, we had sold from that one store $9 million. Okay, so I'm practicing law every day. I get into my car from downtown LA. I take off my suit and tie, and I put on my Krispy Kreme gear. By the time I land in La Habra, the smell coming out of that store is starting to get my glands moving, and the parking lot is full. There are cars out on Imperial Boulevard, on Imperial Highway. It is an incredible experience. All cash business. We are doing $2,000 an hour, 18 consecutive hours. We have to add POS machines. Cash is coming in like you cannot believe. Our general managers have an under-counter safe. The cash is so voluminous that it fills the safe many times over. So what we have to do at that point is cover the general manager's glass office with newspaper so that we can then tie up the cash in bundles and put it on his desk because it's filling up the cash. Then, because that made me really nervous, we would send a general manager, this is your story, through the drive-thru like he was accustomed And we hand you 12 boxes that look like donuts, but they're actually filled with cash. Because the Sectran guys could not get to us fast enough. And they were all nervous. There was too much cash to be handling. So people started to advertise their homes in La Habra as being Krispy Kreme adjacent. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a field of dreams. Who knew we spent zero on advertising, not one nickel. What you're looking at on that slide happened solely because of buzz. This is completely independent of a dollar spent on advertising. And if I had more time, I would give you my theory as to why that happened. This is a 1934 brand, never west of the Mississippi until January 26, 1999. Why did all the newspapers cover this? Why did the media cover it? Why were kids lined up out the door at 2 o'clock in the morning before we opened there, or at the Block and Orange and elsewhere? That's a topic for another day. These are the stores that we were building. This is a $1.5 million, 4,000 square foot building. So those of you who are thinking about takeoff, which is really where I started this, how much money do you have to raise to build 42 of these over 7 years? And keep this in mind. The $1.5 million is X land, right? Because we're leasing most of the land. You can't buy this. Southern California, you can rent it for about $100,000 a year. So those of you who are accountants are going to tell me what the capitalized value of the land is. Add that to the cost of this building, inside and out. So we signed this agreement, 42 stores in 7 years, and we open up this store in January, and I go out and, like a lawyer, raise much too little money. I go out and raise $4 million. I did it myself to finance this thing. Those of you who are quick in math are going to say to me, wait a minute, 42 stores over 7 years times $1.5 million is $65 million. You're raising $4 million to do this? And I made the classic, absolute classic mistake, repeated over and over by entrepreneurs, of being undercapitalized. Each of you will be hit for an investment in a new business. It happens all over America, all over Australia and Canada, where I made this presentation. When you hear someone say, I'm going to raise $4 million to build $65 million of this kind of thing, or anything else, a new business, your immediate reaction should be, I heard this guy Reinis tell me that he made this awful mistake. He's no fool. He went to Princeton, he went to USC, he was on law review, all this other crap. And he made this mistake. You're making the same mistake, at least double that. And now I'm more interested. The single most repeated mistake in startup mode is undercapitalization. I would have been much better off to double or triple that amount, which was the advice my initial investors gave me. Okay, I unfortunately don't have the time to go into all of this stuff, but I did learn this lesson a long time ago. My daughter and her husband Roger are my partners in this business to this day. It was Roger who came up with the idea. So we have a G1 and a G2. Understand what I'm talking about here? That's a family business. How many of you are in family businesses? Most groups have a good representation of family businesses. The reason family businesses get into trouble is because G1s live to serve the business. G2s believe the business lives to serve them. And it's the job of G1s not only to found a business, to establish the family ethic, but to make certain that G2s will live to serve the business. And as you go to G3s, which is where I'm headed soon, and G4s, that responsibility gets passed down. It's part of the founding of a family business. Okay, vision. Many of these groups, I speak to a lot of groups like this, talk about vision, values, mission statement, and frankly, it didn't seem to me that that is something I get my arms around in the donut business, right? It seems a bit too ephemeral. And what I decided after reading this slide was that there was a way to articulate vision that would mean something to every employee who worked for us. And that was to tell the employee why the world is a better place with us than without us. And in our terminology, what that meant was simple. will be the #1 Krispy Kreme in its critical categories: quality, service, and cleanliness. Quality, service, and cleanliness. And I had 2 objectives. #1, that vision of being #1 at QSC is measurable. Every Krispy Kreme in the world has mystery shoppers. Mystery shopping is done as a science, right? It goes through a computer every single day. And if you want me to tell you who the #1 Krispy Kreme is for QSC in the world, I could go on a computer and tell you. That's objective. #2, QSC is manageable. You never ask an employee to do things they can't manage, right? So I wanted the vision of our company to be managed, right down to the janitor. And the critical thing that I learned from this is if I could tie my vision as a CEO to the job description of the janitor and every other job description, I could build employee loyalty and reduce turnover. So what I try to do in every instance is to say to the janitors, if you fail at your job, we fail. So the janitor can go home and say to his significant or her significant other, my performance matters to the CEO. It's a fundamental matter of dignity and self-worth. And I wanted the connection to go from CEO to the lowest paid person who works for us. All right, so we open La Habra, and we start all this stuff, and in our first year we do 12 million. We opened up stores, as you can see there later on in the course of the year, in Van Nuys, and when we open up in Van Nuys, we lose 15% of our business in La Habra. You've got to understand Southern California geography at donut time, right? Donut time's in the morning drive time and in the afternoon drive time. You drive from La Habra to Van Nuys, it's the equivalent of driving from Boston to New York, right? I mean, and to lose 15% of your business, that's incredible. It's truly incredible. McDonald's used to say in an urban environment, we want to be 11 minutes apart. You realize how far Van Nuys is from La Habra in terms of drive time? That's the only way you measure things in this business, drive time. And that is a phenomenal thing. It also tells you the critical element of this business. If you build 42 stores in 7 years, each store will cannibalize the pre-existing stores. That means that the sales in La Habra had no direction to go but down. Understand that? Mandated growth is a prescription for destruction. You're in a business that requires mandated growth. That means you will lose certain rights if you don't meet a growth target. You are headed for trouble. I don't have time to go into all of that, but I want to show you what happens here. After we open in Van Nuys, keep in mind La Habra is now doing more business than any other donut store has ever done. September of 1999, the CEO of Krispy Kreme comes to the opening in Van Nuys, flies in a private jet, and he says to me, it's an absolutely true story. He calls me over at a friends and family gathering. These are the executives at Krispy Kreme in North Carolina. Damien, you can be that executive. And he says to me, I can't do a North Carolina accent. But he says, I want to change the deal. So I'm a smart lawyer, right? And I say to him, that's very flattering, but how is it that you want to change the deal? And he says to me, I want to buy in. Oh, that's really an honor to have you thinking of that. Who's the I in that sentence? This is a New York Stock Exchange company. I want to change the deal. Who's the I in that sentence? So he says to me personally, I want to be an investor in your company. So what I usually do at this point is take a break and ask all you guys how you would respond to that question. Keep in mind, this guy is selling me trash liners. He's selling me the signs. He's selling me stools. He's selling me the secret mix that makes Krispy Kreme the best donut on the planet. Everything you see in a restaurant, we're buying from him. And now he wants to be on both sides of that transaction. Right? So immediately, and I want you to understand this because I'm not terribly biased about these things, my lawyer hat is just blinking red like crazy. New York Stock Exchange company, this transaction would have to be revealed in some form or another, probably in a tiny little footnote, but anybody who's reading it is going to see that he's on both sides of the fence, and I'm thinking it's conflict of interest, right? But most of my business friends are saying to me, do a SWOT analysis here, think about the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats that are presented by this. You may want to think carefully about saying no to this guy. So I said to him, gee, I need to talk to my board about that. Without getting into great detail, I said no. Okay, this is where professionals, lawyers in particular, can take businessmen down a rabbit hole they shouldn't be going. So be very careful when seeking legal advice to understand the legal basis for the advice. But you're a business person, you have your own responsibilities. And they're different than a lawyer's. I've been both. Okay, people ask me about this, and I said I'd mention this, I mentioned it briefly to Jim. The reaction we got on the cover of Fortune magazine, this story that you're hearing has been in the Wall Street Journal and in the Daily Journal. That reaction is a reaction to an old brand. And it's an incredible brand that has been through recessions, depressions, the ups and downs of malfeasance. And I can tell you that in the end, there is a secret, which I'm going to now reveal to you guys, as to what it is that makes a great brand. The secret is to have the platinum service product or service. If you want a great brand, have the platinum standard product or service. And that is a problem. It's easy for me to say, facile in fact. But the reality is, can you prove it? I can prove to you that Krispy Kreme is the #1 branded donut in the world. Blind taste test all over the United States and all over the world. My God, I've only got 57 seconds. Anyhow, that's the secret. You want to know more, you'll have to call me. We associated with these brands, that certainly didn't hurt. We went after them, we identified them, those are the brands we went after. 2000, revenue goes from 12 million to 34 million. Look what happens to EBITDA. We get slaughtered. Okay, 2001, our third year of business, 47 million in revenue. I should be hearing a clap here. Come on, guys. Okay, this number should tighten every sphincter in the room. 1,200 employees. Are you kidding me? I've left the practice law. I'm full-time making donuts, and this is what I'm dealing with. 1,200 employees. It's misery. We're creeping up in EBITDA. We introduce a branded coffee, the best in our neighborhood. Okay, 2002, 58 million in revenue, and all hell breaks loose. This is what you heard about. And after that, time's up.
Don't leave us hanging. How does it end?
How does it end? Krispy Kreme's a public company, right? They have promised the street they're going to have a much greater penetration of the market. We go to them and say, we can't build these restaurants as fast as we promised. It's not because of the money so much, because we've got money coming in like crazy. It's because you can't find a real estate, and you can't train these people, right? We had, in a restaurant business, not uncommon to have more than 80% turnover in your personnel year. How do you train 80% of this, right? 1,000 people a year. So between the real estate, I go to them and I say, come on, let us slow down. And their answer is, we want you to be in 800 grocery stores in the next 2 years. Yeah. Right? Anybody ever buy a Krispy Kreme in Southern California? Right. It didn't belong there. The product is engineered to be consumed on the premises. But that's what they wanted. They're a New York Stock Exchange company. They made promises to Wall Street. They wrote checks we had to cash. I'm not kidding. That's what it was all about. So, we went into the wholesale business. That jumped revenue up to 60 million, but what you can see here is 18 of it in our first year. 18 million at wholesale, right? EBITDA is at 6%. Next year it starts to plummet 4.5%. I'm an EBITDA guy. I focus on earnings. That's what CEOs are all about. 2004, Krispy Kreme announces it's had some funny business going on Wall Street, and our sales plummet 20% a year, year over year. These are the headlines. It's a disaster. Krispy fires the guy who asked me if he could change the deal, and they bring in this joker. I don't have the time to tell you how bad he is. So in 2005, they tear up all the agreements. We can buy from anybody we want, as long as we use the secret sauce for the donuts and the right mix for the glaze. That's okay. Everything. We can buy trash liners from our nearby Staples. Anyhow, in 2005, we dropped sales from 64 million to 43 million, and I start to think that I'm a total failure. And now the story turns a little bit different, because now it's really hell, and I have to manage a business that is in a death spiral. So I go through a period of my life, I won't have to drag you guys through, but I would normally drag a group through, so you start to feel the pain that I felt, and I had to figure out how to get out of it. This, of course, is, people say to me, oh, well, gee, it didn't affect your customers. Oh, yeah, this is the Denver Post. So this is where we were. You understand why it's misleading? We're going to have these guys. So what do we do about it? Okay, when you're in a hole, stop digging. That's the old, the motto. When you're in a hole, stop digging. It's not good enough. The one lesson I learned, one of many, was if you're in a hole and you stop digging, you're still in the hole. If you want to get out of the hole, you don't hire workout people, I hope none of you are, to turn your business around. You need to turn it around yourself. And my dad, who died when we opened the Newport Beach store that day, that we opened November 25th, 2003, had said to me, you're going to get knocked on your butt in business. Get up punching. And I remembered that as I was in the depth of a really bad depression. And I thought, okay, he's right. I got to get up and do this myself. So these are the things we did. I would love to take you through each one of them. I don't have that luxury today, but each one of them is a separate story. Call me and I'll be glad to go over all of this stuff. So that's my concept. I sold the concept to our lenders. We have $30 million in debt, personally guaranteed by this idiot. Okay? That's a bit more than my net worth at the time. And we were about to be thrown into bankruptcy by B of A, Union Bank, both of whom sued me. Krispy Kreme sued me personally. And GE didn't. GE hung back. They weren't a bank, so they had a different set of rules. But they were great to do business with. I made this presentation to them. And that's what saved us. So we come out of this thing, and I learned a lot of really hard lessons about personal guarantees. Anyhow, Krispy decides they want to buy us in 2007. Same company, different leadership. And they want to buy us through a 363 sale into Chapter 11. By this time, I'd done a workout with Bank of America, done a workout with Union Bank, convinced GE to sit back and wait. So we go into an 11 to do a 363 sale in November of 2007. And on the first day I make this speech, October of 2007, Plainview, New York, the general counsel of Krispy calls me and says they can't close the deal. We got 11 stores down from 31 at that point. We're doing $18 million, not making any money, but we're in an 11. And I call my daughter, who's running the business. She's got an office right here in Long Beach. And I said to her, do you think you can make this business work? By this time, I'm back practicing law. I got to make some money to pay the mortgage, seriously. And she said, I think I can make it work, Dad. That was the best day of my life. By far the best day of my life. We come out of that bankruptcy, and we put together a plan where I'd end up owning the business by putting in some fresh money and a guarantee. And I learned this lesson. By this time, all the debt's paid off. Sorry, Don. The lenders are gone. GE's paid off. They're all gone. So we got no debt, 11 stores doing $18 million in 2010. That same the same 11 stores doing $18 million in 2010. By 2014, keep in mind the tailwinds of coming out of the recession did $35 million. No difference in product. Minuscule, inconsequential increases in price. Exactly the same product from the same locations. Just a great management. So I learned this, right? Experience is something, this is something you get right after you need it. Anyhow, I will tell you that when I'm at a big round table at Skadden Arps in Chicago with all these lenders who had sued me, and Krispy Kreme had sued me, and we owed them more money than any of us had, and I won't get into the bankruptcy lawyers. I will just tell you that's where I grew up to be a lawyer. When I hire a good business lawyer, hire somebody who's been through what I've been through as your lawyer. Anyhow, here I am, running away.